Welcome to the Healing Soul podcast, empowering wellness and oneness. Today, I have a remarkable guest, and I'm really excited to talk with him, and I know you'll enjoy it. Welcome to the Healing Soul, Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe.
Very happy to be here, Mary Beth, and discuss. We've been talking about the heart of heaven and what it is to build that in your own chest so that you really have that love inside of you. So I'm really happy to talk about that with you today.
Absolutely beautiful. And then for our listeners, can you give some background on what you do and what you teach on?
Yeah, of course. I am a medical doctor. I trained at the University of Illinois. I graduated in 1983. I've been practicing for almost 40 years. I had a mystical experience while in my residency where I saw a miraculous healing of a young girl, 17, with acute hepatitis who was dying. Once I saw that, I realized that the traditional medical stuff that we were doing wasn't really full on working. And I began exploring all over the world, various forms of other healing. Initially, just wanting to learn it, but later, understanding that it needed to integrate into the medical practice I was doing. And that led to an even larger picture, which was like, what's the larger framework for healing that could allow people to have the best chance to heal worldwide, whatever the systems were that were being applied. So today I'm practicing medicine, but I practice mostly spiritual medicine. And later I became initiated in the Sufi path. Sufi is a mystical path to reach God realization. And in that path, I really got to the roots of why we get sick. What's the real reason sickness happens? What's the purpose of it? And once I started applying that and including that into what we were doing, everything began to work out very well for people. We
Beau-
had many healings.
Beautiful. So, do you feel that you're getting at the root of the problem where the illness was originating from?
I do, and this was kind of after studying many different traditions, Kahuna. I studied shamanism. I did some Zen Buddhist healing, Hindu healing, many different systems of healing around the world. What I finally realized was that if we didn't get to the root, it would return, and oftentimes worse than when it started. And I realized that the reason was that we had kind of it's almost like healing is sort of like if you have a boiling water and you have the steam comes out, but if you stop the steam by a surgery or some other form of healing and the steam continues to build up, it's going to break out in another way. It's going to break the vessel itself.
Right.
And that's the problem with sort of these outer fixes that don't actually get to the roots.
So, do you feel like a lot of times people self-medicate with alcohol and drugs because they're trying to mask the root problem?
Absolutely. For whatever reason, the some of us are very sensitive. And actually, people who have addictions tend to be more sensitive than anybody. So, what I found is that when people who are very sensitive are not able to face the roots, which are fear, anxiety, terror, jealousy, things like that inside themselves, they suppress it. Some people can carry the suppression, but the sensitive people can't. So they end up having to use a substance to medicate themselves to hold it down. So if we can take the substance out like AA or something like that, but if you don't get to the root of why they're covering it up, you really haven't healed it.
That makes perfect sense. So, people that are experiencing, like our listeners that are experiencing anxiety and depression, what are some Sufi practices that would help them get in touch with their feelings and then process them?
Okay, well, the Sufi path has a couple of very basic components to it. The first one is the connected connection to divine light. So if you don't have that connection, which we talked about, is that kind of sense of heaven in the heart, then you don't have basic goodness inside of you. Like you're missing the core place of safety in your own heart. You have nowhere to go. Like when you really develop it, it's almost like you build a room of safety and goodness and love inside your heart. and there's always safety. You can always access it. You can always go there no matter what happens. You have that place to go to. So the first thing is you want to build that safe container. We call that the ship of safety, but you build that inside your heart. The second thing is most anxiety has to do with the with people's inability to deal with what shows up in front of them. So they lose a job, they're having trouble in their marriage, they're having trouble with money, they're having trouble with what's going on in the world events. They feel helpless. And in the state of helplessness, they get frightened. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is kind of free floating helplessness that lives inside of somebody. Depression is really when you give up. Depression is at the point where you say, I just can't deal with it and I give up. And now it drops down and you're kind of in this, it's like a black hole. You enter into a black hole of sadness, impotency, unable to make change, and you're stuck in there. And you can cycle in that for a very long period of time as well, of course.
Right. So, feeling your feelings, I always say, I give intuitive readings also, and I'm a Reiki master, is if you need to cry, cry for a day, let it out, process it, get rid of it, get it out of your body somehow, and
Yeah.
then you can move on.
That's right. If you have, you're right. If you have repressed emotions that you're not letting out, that's the first problem. Although there's one before that, which is you have to have awareness of what's inside of you.
Right. So self-awareness practices and so how do you connect in Sufism to divine love, to that wholeness, so that you realize that you're already perfectly whole and that you are safe?
That's a great question,
Thank
Marybeth.
you.
Well, our system is based on the prophetic system, and we consider prophetic system what Muhammad taught, what Jesus taught, what Moses taught, which is essentially a system from God. So, like God says, if you want to return to me, this is the system you practice. And we believe that that's been passed down generation to generation, since the dawn of time. So it's been here forever. In that system, there are sacred words that bring in the light of the divine. Okay, so by being able to call to a sacred word, you open up the vibration, the sound vibration, which then kind of moves the ethers of the universe and allows that heavenly worlds to open and the light to drop in. Now,
Beautiful.
thank you. All of it's based on the A, so A or the ah sound is the primary sound that opens that level. It opens it in the heart. So if you say, doesn't really matter what you say. If it has the A in it, it will open it. But again, there are more specific names that actually bring forth more powerful vibrations from God itself. So the idea is to capture those names and to bring them into form through your words. And that's how you establish that light inside of you.
So are you speaking of the names of God per se, or
Yeah, I mean, in Sufism, we have 99 essential names of God, which are
wow,
what they're called attributes. So, for example, mercy,
okay.
compassion, things like that. And then we have one name of God, which is, quote, the name that was given as the name to call God upon, which is Allah. Now, people might, get frightened of that because of what's in the news today. But if you go
Right.
back to Christ, when Jesus was in body, he used the word Allah. He called God Allah. Okay, Allah just means the God. That's all it means. And if you say it, and you say it, and if everybody wants to, really use it to try to understand it, because I think we need to understand these things and not just go into judgments. But if you say Ah or Allah, you say it 100, 200 times, you will feel a transmission will begin to move inside of you from God that will be pure white light, and you'll feel it. Your heart will start to get warm. It'll start to radiate love. You'll start to open the 99 names, compassion, mercy, things like that. And you'll start to experience that inside. And you will also see that that name chases away illusion. In other words, a lot of times people have illusions of various types that they're operating. They're afraid, I've even heard people say, well, Allah is from, the devil. But But that is absolutely not true. It actually, if you actually watch it, because I've met people who are actually with the devil, and if I say Allah, they run away. The pain, the light is so strong that it chases them away and they leave.
So it repels them. And I know before we went on camera, I just shared briefly about my near-death experience, and you mentioned the light, and I saw the most blissful, beautiful white light, and I was outside of my body, and I was engulfed in it. I was whole, I was one, and that's how we all are. And when I thumped back into my body, I immediately felt it in my heart, this brilliant white light shooting out of my chest for everything and everyone, realizing that we are all whole. So every person listening is completely whole. You're completely perfect right now, just as you are.
That's right. Yeah, you actually reached what we call the state of unity. Okay, so when you experience that pure white light in heaven and everything was perfect and everything was at peace and everything was in right order, that is the light of unity.
Mhm.
Okay, and then when you drop back in your body, you started vibrating it out to existence, which is actually what we want to see. We'd like all people to have that experience day by day, moment by moment, and to transmit it like you're doing, and to be able to have all people be able to walk through their anxiety, their depression, and their fear to establish that state inside of them. That's the goal.
Right. It's just, I talked about on a past podcast, your spiritual health is just as important as your physical health. And what I mean by that is evaluating how your spirituality, what you feel every day, and kind of evaluating your frequency. Do I feel connected to God or to nature or to everyone? And if you're not in connection, aligning with your soul again so that you can transform your life.
Yeah, that's the path. You exactly have that right. Except the problem is that most people really don't know how to get there. And even when you say alignment, people don't really know how to align,
Right.
And then secondly, why do people go out of alignment? And that's the second problem is that people don't understand how misalignment occurs. So if you don't know how it occurs, how do you get back?
See, for me, it's meditation, a daily meditation, sitting in the quietude, opening your heart, opening your mind, opening your soul to receive the messages. And when I had my near-death experience, I literally saw two golden tethers going from my body to my soul that I could transmit infused knowledge through.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's right. In our way, we would agree with all that, but we would add an additional piece, which is the what we call dhikr or sound vibration. In other words, there are certain sounds that really bring in that holy light. And meditation may or may not. Like I
Right.
meditated Vipassana for 20 years and I did not reach that divine light,
Okay. Uh-huh.
But then when I became a Sufi and I started using these chants, these dhikrs, then all of a sudden that light appeared. But the other side of it was that light has authority and it has obligation to it. In other words, if you want to carry that light, for example, one of the obligations is to live from love. And if you like go into hatred or anger, then you actually will veil that light coming into. I mean, it does come, but you don't see it. It gets veiled. And that's the misalignment you're talking about.
Right. So, do you feel that our listeners that are going through tragic times in their lives, that sometimes the tragedies in your life can actually propel you and transform you to having the best life and to having compassion for others and growing and expanding in your spiritual health?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a core teaching. You're right on it. That all life is here to know God, or the entire life situation is for us to know the presence of God. and to reach an everlasting experience of that divine oneness and truth and peace in our hearts. So what God does is create all sorts of situations in life, those are called trials, to help us to realize it. So for example, one aspect of God we say is al-Qawi. Qawi is strength. Okay, so for example, if you have a bully who beats you up, that's not a very nice thing, and you want to get rid of the bully, and that's a good thing. But God might have put the bully in front of you to teach you call we to be strong. And once you stand up to the bully, you have a new strength inside yourself, and that strength is good strength, and you need it as part of your journey towards God.
Right.
Okay. So there are 99 names, and each one has different trials. I remember one time somebody was beating me up when I was 13. And initially, I was a little frightened by it and was kind of backing off. And then one day, I realized I had enough, and they came after me and they tried to punch me. And I remember I just reached up my hand and I stopped it and I said, "Don't ever do that to me again." And in that moment, a strength came into me, and the person started shaking, and they said, "What's the matter? Can't you take it?" And I said, "I don't need to be bullied by you. Don't ever do that again to me." And you know what? They never bullied me again. That was the end of it.
You stepped into your personal power.
Exactly. And
And
really own that call we, that strength, which I didn't
Mhm.
have until that moment.
Right. So we feel it. I mean, others feel it when we're at the point of no more and knowing that what's right for your life. And, they always say you teach people how to treat you, which if, I've given talks to abused women that sometimes makes them angry, but it is, obviously you're getting out of abusive situations, but empowering your choices every day to change your life.
Yeah, that's exactly the real teachings that have to happen. But like a lot of time in trauma, for example, in abuse, initially people, they're not ready to be empowered. They need to be listened to and they need to be
Right.
held and, sort of comforted because they've been hurt.
Right.
But the problem is that many people in that situation, they cycle through that again and again and again,
Right.
especially getting, beat up and then wanting to be held and beat up and wanting to be held when at some point they have to make the shift into self-empowerment.
Right.
And if they're
So
really
loving yourself and having unconditional love for yourself.
exactly having unconditional love for yourself and taking on what's the teaching, what is God trying to teach you in a situation, in whatever situation, like for example, we're in world situations right now. We see Russia invading Ukraine. We see the war in Gaza. There's all sorts of concerns about China invading Taiwan now. So we have a lot of things going on our planet. But on the deep level, what is God trying to teach humanity? And what is God trying to teach the Gazans, the Israelis, the Ukrainians, the Russians? The Chinese, the Taiwanese, each culture has something that's being taught to them. If they learn it, my experience is that the teaching falls out and the whole situation stops.
Right. So do you believe in prayer, in mass prayer and mass meditation can literally shift the frequency of the globe?
I do. I think there's a hundredth monkey effect. Absolutely.
I do too. And I think our listeners, if you want to make a change, pray for peace and love in groups and meditate on that with a focus of having peace and love for everyone and having people realize that we are all one.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And again, I just add to that, remember that ultimately it is that pure white light, that divine light that when we anchor it is the source of peace, is the source of love itself. So we want to make sure that we add that to our meditations and establish that in our hearts so that we really are vibrating in ourselves as well as just asking for it. It's asking is what I call the first step, but becoming it and vibrating it, that's the second step.
So we talked about alignment. In your experience, what is the best way for our listeners to align?
Okay, so what first thing is what are we aligning with? You
Right,
know,
our soul, our divine spark.
yes, and I would say, the soul, there's a difference between the soul and the divine spark.
Mhm.
Okay, so in the soul is still an individualized creation. Okay, so we all have a soul, but our souls are incomplete. Okay, we all have a spirit, which is the inblown breath of God, which that's the oneness. Like when you namaste somebody and you say, I
Right.
bow to that, that's the inblown breath of God.
Mhm.
Okay, so what we're really aligning is our soul with the inblown breath of God within us. Okay, and the inblown breath of God is, if it's not veiled, because it can become veiled, is supposed to be aligning with the divine nature of existence itself, with God itself. So that's
Right.
also as an alignment.
That's beautiful. And I see you've got a new book, God's Way. Can you tell our listeners about your book, God's Way?
Yeah, well, I spent about 30 years working with how to get to the root of why we get sick. And then one day I had a student who was very intellectual, and he said to me, Ibrahim, what you taught, I just can't understand it. It's like I'm in my mind, and you're teaching energy and you're teaching spirit, and I don't get it. Can you create it in a way that people like me can get it? So I said, okay. And it took me 3 years to sit down and really kind of map out the steps. Well,
Wow.
that's what God's way is the mapping of the steps.
Wow. And where can listeners get God's Way, your book?
Right now, they can get it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. Look for God's Way, Sufi Spiritual Healing, Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe.
Perfect. And then I know on your website, you talked about synthesizing medical, energetic, and spiritual healing. Is that part of the concepts in your book?
It is. I mean, in the book, we're mostly teaching about the spiritual energetic, but
Okay.
for me as a doctor, I'm always crossing all three boundaries. So I start one day, somebody comes in, they're in the ICU. They're having just a week ago, a man with lung cancer. So they're asking me how to treat him spiritually, energetically, and dealing with the doctors in the ICU. So it's a balance, and that's something, by the way, that we do teach that, for people who are ready, many doctors, professionals, acupuncturists, people like that who want to learn that more professional side of it. But the other side of it is just as a base, for you or people maybe not, and I'm not sure what your background is, Mary Beth, but if you're not a professional and you want to learn self-healing in this
Mhm.
way, that's kind of the central role of our university to teach the self-healing and the spiritual connection, University of Sufism.
Yeah, I am a Reiki master, so I do a lot of Reiki healing on clients and that energetic healing. And you developed a University of Sufism 25 years ago. How can our listeners take classes if they're interested in discovering more?
Yeah, if you go to sufiuniversity.org, there's our website. You can read about us and learn about our classes. We have loads of classes that are available. From beginners, which are our foundations course, all the way up to, very advanced teachings where we teach people how to heal the soul, how to connect to the spirit, how to unveil the spirit, how to walk into the world of enlightenment and unity. And those are we call our advanced Sufi walking. So all of those are there. Our work is slightly different in that it's always done through the heart,
Right.
so we're not teaching it just through the mind or the third eye.
That resonates so much with me at my core. And I wrote a book a couple years ago called Intuitive Heart, Feel Your Intuition Through Your Heart. Because I feel we are guided by our feelings, and our heart tells us where to go and how to do it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the right, that's right. And everyone, to all your listeners, if you're not living in your heart and you don't know your heart and you don't know how to expand it and purify it, it's almost like it's like you're walking with a crutch, and through the world. Like you're walking, but you're weak. It's hard to walk when you have a crutch and you have a bad leg. But once your heart is solid, once your heart is connected, once your heart has that deep alignment that Mary Beth and I are talking about, what you'll see is that life becomes very easy. It's actually a very easy journey through life. And most of the time, you're in a very deep state of contentment, and of course, at times you'll hit trials where you will get, buffet. It's like a storm comes on the boat and you have to deal with that storm. But for the most part, you know how to sail your boat. You're comfortable in the ocean. You're moving comfortably through it. I mean, you also know how to, buckle down if the storm comes. And that's really the ship of safety. And that's when you really understand your own heart and you've connected that heart to the one.
That's beautiful. So, we went through COVID and the aftermath. I feel like face-to-face connection is so very important on a human level. Don't you agree with that? That the face-to-face, we got to get back to more face-to-face whenever we can.
Yeah, I think that the Zoom and the electronics were good for a while,
Right.
and we all got a lot out of it because, for us, we had people coming in from all over the world that could now reach us. But there's something about the face to face, seeing a person, touching a person, shaking hands, hugging a person. It brings a dimension that we need, and we're missing that. We're starting to become, disconnected from our humanness.
Right. So I know I always feel uplifted when I go to lunch with friends and we look at each other in the eye and give a hug when you're done. There's just something magic about human connection. And I feel like if our listeners are lacking that, schedule a lunch with a friend or go on a date night with your significant other. It always boosts my mood. I know that connection and just feeling loved.
Exactly. And if a lot of you, as we become more insulated and isolated because of COVID and Zoom, you realize that it actually takes more communication and honesty and willingness to meet with people now. So in other words, when you go out, really be honest with whoever you're meeting with, really tell them the truth because you don't know the next time you're going to meet them. If you really love them, tell them, I really love you. If you really like them, I really like you. If you have an issue, don't run away from it. Take the time to really work it out so you get back to the love. And that's the real use of that time. Otherwise, we're just kind of chattering, but in a certain level, we're wasting our time because we're not really getting deep with each other.
So being authentically, wholeheartedly you.
Exactly. And don't be afraid of that. And again, in Sufism, we teach what we call adab. Adab means to be polite or to be sincere or to be aware of other people's hearts. So we don't want to just throw our feelings on people and hurt them, which is a lot of what authentic teachings are. Just be yourself. If somebody gets hurt, that's their problem. It's not your problem. That's not Sufi teaching. Sufi says, no, you do have an obligation to care for somebody's heart and to treat it well. But at the same time, you have to be authentic, and that's kind of the dance. How do you walk politely with someone, carefully with someone, lovingly with someone, but also telling your truth. And that's the real dance.
And I really feel like you can send people love. And if you do create boundaries that are healthy so that you can be more aligned with your soul and be more authentic, and you need to have a friendship for a season and move on, you can send that person love, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be, we're all changing quickly. And those of us on a spiritual path, we're changing very quickly, sometimes day by day. and so there may be moments when a friendship ends, in the sense that you love them and you care about them, but you're moving into a new place and they don't want to go there. And
Right.
that friendship may become an impediment to moving forward spiritually.
Right. And then you on your website, you've got that you've been walking the path of your heart. I absolutely love that. It's so beautiful. Walking the path of your heart.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, I discovered Sufism in 1995. I had a heart issue. I had congestive heart failure. My
Oh,
heart,
wow.
and I was young. I was in my mid 30s, and so the prognosis was actually pretty bad for me. I thought I was going to die,
Wow.
and I had been on a spiritual path since I was young, early teens. So I wasn't, and I'd been to India and I had studied in ashrams and Buddhist monasteries and things. But it wasn't healing my heart because that was about consciousness. Consciousness is about, what you're aware of. Heart is about what you love.
Right.
And so when I went into congestive heart failure, I couldn't heal it because my systems were all based on awareness, but not based on love. So that's when I met the Sufi master, and that's the first thing he said to me. He said, "You have learned your spirituality through your mind, but if you really want to heal your heart, you have to. I'm going to take it all away from you. We're going to put you back in kindergarten, and you're going to learn it from your heart and learn how to love." And when he did that to me, my heart healed. That's how I healed it.
Wow. So did he mentor you, or did you just start taking more and more classes and reading about Sufism after that?
Well, at that time, we didn't have the university. We didn't have any books. He was kind of a hidden teacher.
Okay.
So I would call him maybe once a month, talk to him. He'd tell me something. I would read a few things he had written that were in kind of paper form. And then that went on for about a year and a half. And then but I was, because they had given me 6 months to live. So
How scary.
it was really scary, really, really scary.
Wow.
And I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and you know how it is. You're looking at dying at that age. It's really
Right.
scary. But after a year and a half, I realized I wasn't gonna die. And I realized that what was happening was that the teachings were changing my heart. I was becoming more loving. I was becoming more kind. I was becoming more merciful. Those qualities were what was healing me.
Wow. That's fascinating.
It was. So that became the root of, at that point, I was already doing energetic healing. I had a school of energetic healing called the Life Force Institute and School of Energy Mastery. But but we were missing a lot. Like the Sufi brought in that whole piece of connection to God, the unity light, getting to the deep spiritual reasons we're sick, why the heart needs to change, how to embody mercy and compassion and all 99 names. And those pieces made a really, for me, it was a radical change in my own life trajectory.
Hmm.
And I've been on that path now, probably what, since 95, whatever that is, 30 years. And
Right.
I've never looked back, and honestly, it never stops opening. I mean, every single day it just opens more and more. It's amazing. It's really intriguing.
Just a beautiful journey of your soul.
Thank you. And it's something that everyone, this is my opinion, of course, but everyone needs to embark on it because that's what life's about. And if you're not really growing into the beauty, the love, the mercy, the compassion, the goodness, the kindness, the wisdom, all these things, then in a way you've missed the whole, you're not traveling the spiritual side of your life.
I agree totally. And I know you had your sickness in your 30s. It almost took your life. And I was actually 30 years old when I had my near-death experience, and it woke me up in a profound way that changed my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, you had both of us had jarring experiences.
Very jarring that life may not be here tomorrow. So, and then what you shared about being real with your friends and family, telling them that you love them, being authentic. My brother had called me. He was going on a business trip, and I had little kids, and my daughter had t-ball, and I didn't talk to him. And he's like, "Well, I'm going on a business trip. I wanted to call and see if you were okay and if you needed anything." And I'm like, "Look, we're late for t-ball. I can't talk." I didn't even tell him I loved him. He went on his business trip, had an asthma attack in his hotel room, and died.
Oh my God.
So take that pause, even if you're running late, and tell the person, I love you, I appreciate you. Because it could be the last time you ever talk to them.
That is so true and so profound. Yeah, it's like don't miss that moment. And when you're moving from that unity light, the love, if you had been in that moment, you would have stopped
I would
and
have.
and you would have taken the time because it would have shown you. I remember when I was one day I was meditating. I wanted to go talk to my teacher. His name was Siddhi, and normally I would, think I'd tune into him and I'd feel him and then see if there was an opening to talk to him or not. And if it was, I'd call. But this time I opened and it was kind of like the world's open. I literally on the inner world, I could see the path to his home that I needed to go there. It was like a virtual experience that I'd never had before. So, I realized the profundity of it. Got in my car with my daughter. We drove down to Marin County, which is where he was at the time. We were up in Napa, and I got there. We had a very too long, 2 hour, beautiful experience with him. Left, in a very deep state of unity and oneness, and the next day he had a major stroke, which actually ended up killing him a few days later.
Oh my goodness. Thank goodness you followed and put action to what you received.
Exactly, and that's the point. It's like all of us are getting those messages all the time. I mean, they're all like God is telling us, like to your brother, he called you. It was clearly a divine intervention. The divine was saying, say hello to your brother, say goodbye to your brother. You
Right.
don't realize this, but he's going to go.
Right. And that happens on a daily basis that, we don't know if we're going to die tomorrow. And those words that we say to somebody at lunch or in a conversation could be the last words we ever utter. So be kind, be loving.
That's exactly right. And just, whatever conversation you have, complete it as if it's your last one. So if when you leave that conversation, are you ready to leave it? And has the love been reestablished between you?
Right.
And if it isn't, then you really try to take the time to reestablish it before you break the conversation.
It's profound words of advice for sure. Um, do you have any final words or any upcoming classes that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, we have ongoing foundations courses. They happen several times a year. They're usually a weekend or they're sometimes 7 evenings, like every Tuesday, Thursday night. We have a whole series of courses at the university which last a year, and we teach everything from connecting to God to spiritual healing in my book, to just basically what we call ethics and understandings of a life in the prophetic understanding,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
So, and those are happening all year long. And we will be opening more courses. We're actually just restructuring where we purchased a property out in California, Santa Barbara. So we're in the process of restructuring not only the curriculums, but making it available to people who want to come out in person. So that means shorter courses that people can come out and partake for a few days or a weekend as well. So all that's available to people, and it's being put up slowly now as we're preparing and putting it all together, moving out of the Zoom and the online courses into a more
Right.
in live situation.
You showed me the picture of the facility and it looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like we've just been gifted just the most beautiful facility you could ever imagine. And, it feels like for us, it feels like God is saying it's time to bring the real teachings of unity and oneness and love to the world as you've learned it and that the world needs it. And so we're really committed to making that happen.
Well, thank you. It's been an intriguing talk, and I thank you for being on the Healing Soul. And I would love to go in person and take one of your courses when your facility is up and running, because face to face is so enriching. And thank you, Dr. Jaffe, for being on the Healing Soul.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I hadn't known you had that near-death experience, and I didn't know that that was kind of what was moving you deep in your heart. So I'm really delighted to hear that.
Well, thank you.
And you're welcome. Please come out anytime. Your listeners are welcome to come. And again, the bottom line of it is, if we can learn to love and carry mercy and compassion in our hearts in a deep way and unity, we can create that hundredth monkey effect and begin to change the world. And then we can stop all these wars and all these things that are happening from changing the inner reality of the human being. That's what we need to do.
It's beautiful. And I always pick an intuitive heart oracle card, and
Oh, good.
today's is perfect. Feel God in you now. That flitter of joy, that peace that washes over you all at once. That's God in you. Pure bliss resides in you. Stop and take 3 breaths. Breathe in peace. Exhale anxiety and feel God in you now. The Healing Soul, empowering wellness and oneness. God loves you, and so do I. Thank you.
We say Alhamdulillah, praise God. Thank you. Great,
Thank
great
you.
card. And thank you for this.